Hey guys, it's Kevin in the Murphy guys, and this is going to be for the final Insidious review before I see Insidious The Last Key. Of course, this one being for the final entry, at least, until I see the fourth one, of course. That, of course, being for Insidious Chapter 3. And what Insidious Chapter 3 is essentially about is we center on not the Lamberts this time. Their story has very much closed. We instead focus on this character named Quinn, and she is this girl who has recently lost her mother, and her father, Sean, they're trying to get through it, but she ends up contacting Elise to try to, to try to make contact with her mother and see if, they can be able to, that she can be able to somehow make contact with her. But things do quickly go awry once Quinn ends up getting hit by a car, and from there, terror pretty much strikes the family, and that's really all I want to say. So Insidious Chapter 3 overall, let me just say right off the bat, I have reviewed this movie before. I reviewed it on my second channel, actually, and I would encourage you guys to watch that review. I definitely would, do that, but I figured that since I haven't actually reviewed it on this channel, it would still make sense to, review this film. It's also been a while since I saw it, and I remember the first time I really loved it. Like, it really surprised me, and you guys have to understand, I was dreading this movie originally when it was coming out. I remember the marketing was awful. They marketed it as this, like, sort of romantic horror film that I really wasn't digging at all. It just seemed like such a departure from the series. It was just really bad marketing altogether. I was not at all looking forward to it, and it really surprised me then. I loved it then, and I still do love it now. Insidious Chapter 3, honestly, is really underrated. I think people really forget how important of an entry this really is. Now, I said in my original review this is the most important entry in the series, and I do still somewhat stick by that. I think it is a very important entry for sure. I think it is far more interesting than it could have been. It's far better than it should have been as well. But we're just getting into right now, starting off with the cast. And right off the bat, I will absolutely say that is one of the best things about this movie for sure, and I think that's one of the reasons why this movie was so surprising when it came out, because the fact that the cast here is so good. Everyone is really dedicated, and everyone really does kill it in this film, especially Stefanie Scott as Quinn. I mean, before this film, I really didn't see her as much of anything. I really didn't think she was that great of an actress. She was on that show Ant Farm, and she honestly wasn't good in that show at all, but she really is great here as Quinn. I mean, this is a very challenging role to pull off. I mean, first off, Quinn, when we first see her, she seems like your typical teenager who's going through the same problems. She's graduating high school, thinking about college and things like that. Trying to get into this art school and whatnot. So she is focusing on those things, but once she ends up in this car accident, that's when she really starts to, her acting really starts to, show here. I think she really did a great job. She really is put through the ringer in this film. I mean, things just get worse and worse for this character as the movie goes on, and Scott stays 100% committed to it. I mean, there's just so much pathos into this role. You can see the determination in her. She wants to do whatever she can to try to make contact with her mother, and I really love what she did here. I thought she really killed it in this film for sure. She definitely is one of the standouts. Definitely way better, like I said, than I expected her to be, and she definitely does not get talked about enough. I mean, definitely after this film, Stefanie Scott really did kill it, and I was very surprised by how great she was here. However, similar to the first movie, the absolute standout of this film is Shaye as Elise, who steals pretty much every scene she's in here. I mean, she is absolutely incredible in this movie, and one of the best things about this movie for sure, because without Elise's involvement in the story, I don't think this movie would be nearly as impactful as it really is. I mean, Elise really does go through a pretty big transformation here. She starts off as a very shy, very secluded, just very petrified old lady. That really is what she is. She's very hesitant to get back into this world of being a medium and, going back into this seance and things like that. She's just not interested in doing that because of failings of the past. And we very much do understand that because of our, us watching the first two movies. Where she ends this film is, obviously, since this is a prequel, it does end with her determined and, her starting to, we see her throughout the film wanting to actually go back into that world. And I thought that she did such an incredible job here. There's so much, similar to Stefanie Scott, there's so much emotion poured into her performance. Some of the best scenes are just these two in general. There's a lot of similarities between them, surprisingly, and we also get more context into Elise's character, something that I don't think we really knew before, and I really love what they did with her overall. It really showed how incredible of an actress she is, and the fact she's still able to hold her own 3 movies in is incredible, and I just really love what she did in this movie. However, similar to the first movie, the absolute standout of this film is Lynn Shaye as Elise, who steals pretty much every scene she's in here. I mean, she is absolutely incredible in this movie, and one of the best things about this movie for sure, because without Elise's involvement in the story, I don't think this movie would be nearly as impactful as it really is. I mean, Elise really does go through a pretty big transformation here. She starts off as a very shy, very secluded, just very petrified old lady. That really is what she is. She's very hesitant to get back into this world of being a medium and, going back into this seance and things like that. She's just not interested in doing that because of failings of the past. And we very much do understand that because of our, us watching the first two movies. Where she ends this film is, obviously, since this is a prequel, it does end with her determined and, her starting to, we see her throughout the film wanting to actually go back into that world. And I thought that she did such an incredible job here. There's so much, similar to Stefanie Scott, there's so much emotion poured into her performance. Some of the best scenes are just these two in general. There's a lot of similarities between them, surprisingly, and we also get more context into Elise's character, something that I don't think we really knew before, and I really love what they did with her overall. It really showed how incredible of an actress she is, and the fact she's still able to hold her own 3 movies in is incredible, and I just really love what she did in this movie. So now let's get to the directing and the writing, which once again I am repeating myself from my previous review, but again, you guys haven't seen a review on this channel, so I'm just gonna say it again. The directing here by Leigh Whannell is definitely one of the best parts of this film, and that was really, I remember, my main concern with this movie, the fact that James Wan wasn't helming this film. Now, obviously, that's not his fault. He was directing Furious 7 at the time. He had to focus on that film, and as you know, he did take a little bit of a break from horror movies. Obviously, he came back with Conjuring 2, but he did take a little bit of a break, and, that was his last one for a while, as we do know. But Leigh Whannell, I mean, definitely, they didn't miss a beat when it comes to directing. He really got the directing style done very well. And what I really love is the way that this feels less like a horror movie, because it is a horror movie for sure, but there's a lot more drama in here. And I think, similar to the first one, it really takes its time in that way. And I think the directing's just very well realized. There's a lot of emotion in this film, far more than I was expecting, and I think the emotional stuff works very well. And when you couple that with the horror elements, which also are very well realized, I think those two elements just go very well together, and that's something I very much do enjoy. But the screenplay is, I think, what sticks out even more, because the fact that this is even a halfway decent screenplay, that in itself is kind of a miracle, because, again, it's the 3rd film in a horror series. That doesn't usually go well at all, and here, it actually goes really well. They do a very good job of developing these characters, and not just Elise. I mean, you would think that the film is mainly concerned about, okay, let's focus on Elise and put everyone else to the side, but they don't really do that. In fact, I noticed this on a rewatch. the film spends about the first like 40 or 50 minutes diving fully into the Brenners. It's really not till I'd say 50 minutes in where Elise really becomes a prominent character. I mean, sure, she's in bits and pieces of the first two hacks, but it's really not till the middle of the second act where she really starts to become a lot more important. And I thought it was a really smart choice for them to do that. You know, we don't really know these characters at all. Sure, you know, there's stuff about Elise we didn't know, but for the most part, we really do know her character. But Quinn and Sean, we don't know their characters yet, and I really do love the way we dive into these two characters. They're also very interesting. They have a very complex relationship. There's a lot of stuff going on with them in this movie, and again, I think it is all very well handled. I really did love where they took their relationship in the film, the way they're trying to move past this specific tragedy. I think that's very well done, but also the characters, you know, like I said, the character of Quinn is very well developed. She's not annoying. She is a teenager, but she's not annoying in that way, and I really did enjoy where they took her character. Sean as well is a very interesting character, and the motivation. I mean, the motivation, while Quinn is injured throughout this film, there's still a mission. The mission is to contact her mother. Even when she's at her lowest point, she is just so determined to contact her mother, and I really did love seeing that throughout this film, because like I said, things just kind of get worse and worse and worse for her, and I think that definitely is very well handled. And when you combine that with what we find out with Elise, it's actually a very well done character study. Yeah, that's what this movie is. It's kind of a character study in that way, and that's something that very much did surprise me. Elise's pain as well, when we find out kind of what she's going through, I thought that was very well done. The way they connect those two stories together are really good, and like I said, I think it definitely is a very solid screenplay overall. And one of the things I really enjoy is that they really kept it simple here. The second one really overcomplicated things. They went into some really crazy directions, and this one really scales back. It focuses on the most simple elements, and I think that's what really works in an Insidious film. It really takes its time when it comes to the story, and that's something I very much did enjoy overall. Let's talk about Specs and Tucker, because similar to Elise, they're really not in this movie till the third act, and there's definitely a lot of great stuff with them. Their comedy is still fun to watch. Admittedly, it's not as funny as the first two, I will definitely say that. I didn't think their comedy was as great as the first two were. They still had some good lines for sure, but their comedy isn't as consistent as the first two were. I definitely will say that, but I think they still need to be in this movie. They need to be here, especially because of the way things do wrap up towards the end. I thought that was definitely very well done. Again, I said this in my original review, and I will say it again. My biggest complaint with this movie has to be the creature. Not because the creature was bad or forgettable. It's just the creature in general. I didn't really understand the connection. Obviously, we know very well that this creature isn't their mother, and that their mother, you know, obviously, you know, we don't know, I'm without getting into spoilers, obviously, we know this creature isn't their mother, but why is this connected to their family? Why is this happening to them? Why were they chosen? I mean, the first two Insidious, those explored very well what happened to the Lamberts, and this one doesn't really dive as deep into that concept. So that is the one thing that I do think the film could have done more with, and I wouldn't really attribute that to the film's writing. I'd attribute it more to the runtime, but we'll get to that in a little bit. And the only other thing, like I said, Specs and Tucker's humor did not work as well for me as it did in the other films. But the way the film connects things to the first two is actually really cool. There is a hilarious scene where Elise just name drops something from these two characters towards the end, and it had me cracking up. I really love where they went. Similar to the second one, they really do tie things in here quite nicely, and I really enjoyed that. I thought it was a really good way to wrap things up in that way. The score here, of course, I really do love the score here. Cinematography, once again, is gorgeous here. I love the world of Further. It's so creative. It looks great. The creatures as well are, for the most part, practical effects, and I really enjoyed the cinematography. Very good stuff there. And the editing, like I said this in my original review, and I'll say it again, I do think the movie is just a little bit too short, especially when it comes to the connection with the creature. The film, like I said, it is kind of selling itself short in that way, but other than that, I really don't have too many complaints with Insidious Chapter 3. I think this is definitely a much better film than it could have been. I'm surprised that it turned out as well as it did, and it does make me just a little bit upset that we are getting Insidious The Last Key because of how well this film does end. It does such a great job of tying everything up and making everything feel complete, and I'm hoping The Last Key doesn't destroy that. I'm hoping The Last Key, feels as necessary as this film does, because it does feel like a necessary entry. It felt like kind of like the last puzzle piece that we really needed. And like I said, I definitely do enjoy this film a lot. I think this is definitely a great film for sure. It's it's just a very well done entry in this series. It's a really great way to, at that point, close things out. And I am going to give Insidious Chapter 3 overall a B+. Also, I will say this, as much as I do like this film, I do still think that the film should be called Insidious Chapter 0, because it is a prequel, and I don't understand why it's Insidious Chapter 3. It's just kind of confusing, honestly, so I think they should have just called Insidious Chapter 0. It is, in fact, a prequel. It happens right before the first one. Why shouldn't they just call it Insidious Chapter 0? I don't know why they didn't do that. Either way, guys, that's it for my review. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys thought of this movie overall. Left your thoughts, and I will be seeing Insidious The Last Key later today. Definitely looking forward to seeing how that does turn out. But that's my review. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you guys in my next video, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.